I used to tell people I had a full life. That word, full, felt safe. It sounded like something to be proud of. My days were packed. My calendar was always marked. There was always somewhere to be, something to handle, someone waiting on me. From the outside, it looked like a presence. It looked like participation. It looked like a life being lived. But now, when I sit quietly and try to remember it, most of it is missing. Not forgotten in the way you forget names or dates, but absent, like it was never fully there to begin with. I remember being tired more than I remember being present. I remember moving from one obligation to the next, telling myself I would slow down once things settled. They never did. I ate meals while thinking about the next task. I listened to people while preparing my reply. I showed up physically, but my mind was always somewhere else, already leaving the moment before it finished. At the time, it felt normal, necessary even. Everyone around me was doing the same thing. We called it responsibility, we called it adulthood, we called it life. It wasn't until much later that I realized how little of it stayed with me. When I look back now, the years don't feel rich. They feel thin, like pages turned too quickly to read. I struggle to recall ordinary days because I wasn't really there for them. They passed through me without leaving a mark. And the truth that hurts the most is this. Nothing dramatic caused that absence. No single tragedy, no great failure, just constant motion, constant distraction. A quiet habit of being elsewhere. I thought the memory came from time, that the longer you lived, the more you would have to remember. I was wrong. Memory comes from attention, from stillness, from being fully inside a moment while it's happening. And when you aren't, when you rush through your days half aware, those days don't stay with you, they disappear. You don't feel it at first. You feel productive, useful, needed. It takes years before you notice the hollow space where your life should be. I'm telling you this because one day, much sooner than you expect, you will try to look back. You'll search for the weight of your own days. And what you'll find isn't how busy you were, or how much you handled, or how hard you tried. You'll find gaps. Long stretches where you were technically present but emotionally gone. And that realization that you were there, yet never really there, is a quiet kind of grief. One that arrives without warning. And once it does, you can't go back and fill in what was never truly lived. I didn't wake up one morning and decided to stop paying attention to my life. It happened quietly, slowly, so slowly that I didn't notice it at all. One small habit at a time, one distraction layered on top of another. I told myself I was just busy, just tired, just trying to keep up. I didn't realize that each time I postponed a moment, each time I said later, I was training myself to live at a distance from my own days. Distraction felt harmless at first. A newspaper during breakfast, the radio while driving, later screens. Always something pulling at me, something asking for a piece of my attention. I believed I could split myself without consequence. I believed I could half listen, half care, half show up and still be whole. But presence doesn't work that way. It doesn't survive in pieces. Every time my mind wandered, the moment continued without me, and I let it. Over and over again. Routine made it easier to disappear. The days began to look the same, and because they looked the same, I treated them as less important. I stopped noticing details. I stopped asking questions. I stopped really seeing the people I lived with. I knew their faces, their habits, their voices, but I didn't know them in that deep, attentive way anymore. I assumed there would always be another dinner, another conversation, another quiet chance to pay attention properly. That assumption felt reasonable at the time. It was wrong. Postponement became my favorite lie. I postponed rest. I postponed joy. I postponed difficult conversations. I postponed love, even when the people were right in front of me. I told myself I would be more present when things calmed down, when work eased, when stress passed, when I had more energy. But life doesn't pause while you prepare to live it. It keeps moving, and the longer you delay presence, the more unnatural it becomes. The most dangerous part is that none of this feels like a mistake while it's happening. It feels responsible. It feels mature. It feels like survival. You don't feel the loss in real time. You feel it later when you try to remember. When you search for moments that should have mattered and find only blur. That's when you realize your presence wasn't stolen from you. You handed it away, bit by bit, day by day, without ever noticing the moment it was gone. The moment didn't arrive with a sound, no announcement, no warning. It came in a quiet space I wasn't prepared for. I was standing still, with nothing pulling at me for once, and that's when it showed itself. The absence, the weight of what should have been there. I had lost someone I loved, and in the stillness that followed, I realized how little of myself I had truly given while I still could. Not because I didn't care, but because I was always somewhere else. Loss has a way of stripping away the excuses you've been using for years. When someone is gone, there's no more later to hide behind, no more postponed conversations, no more chances to listen better next time. All that's left is memory, and memory is unforgiving when you haven't been present. I tried to recall ordinary moments, not the big ones, but the quiet days, the conversations that should have stayed with me, and I couldn't. They blurred together, not because they were unimportant, but because I treated them that way while they were happening. Time does this too, even without death. Distance grows, people move away, relationships thin out. One day you realize you no longer know the details of someone you once saw every day. You know the outline of their life, but not the texture. You miss the slow changes, the small confessions, the subtle needs, and there's a shock in that realization. A moment where you understand that being physically present was never the same as truly being there. I remember sitting alone after that loss, thinking about all the times I nodded instead of listening, all the evenings I cut short, all the moments I rushed through because I believed they would repeat. That belief shattered in an instant. The truth settled in slowly, and it was heavy. I had shared space, shared years, shared routines with someone, but I had not shared enough attention. And attention, I learned too late, is the only part of you that truly counts. That clarity doesn't feel dramatic. It feels cold, clean, final. It shows you exactly what was missed, without anger, without comfort, just facts. You were there. Your body showed up, but your mind was elsewhere. And now the chance to return to those moments exists only in regret. People imagine regret as something loud, a single terrible decision, a moment that ruins everything. That isn't how it usually comes. The deepest regret I carry was built quietly, without drama, without anyone noticing. I didn't lose my life to one great mistake. I lost it to thousands of small, ordinary days lived halfway. Days that seemed harmless while they were happening. Days that asked nothing from me except attention, and still I gave them very little. Living on autopilot feels safe. You follow the pattern, wake up, work, eat, sleep, repeat. Nothing goes wrong enough to alarm you. There's no crisis forcing change. That's why it's so dangerous. You begin to measure your life by survival instead of presence. As long as you're functioning, you assume you're living. I did. Years passed where nothing collapsed, but nothing stayed with me either. The days slid past, smooth and forgettable like water over stone. I see now that the cost wasn't obvious at first. It showed up in what never formed, conversations that never went deeper, affection that stayed unspoken, curiosity that faded. I stopped noticing my own body until it began to hurt. I stopped noticing other people until they began to pull away. Autopilot doesn't steal everything at once. It thins your life slowly until it feels lighter than it should, easier to carry, easier to ignore. There were no villains in this story, no dramatic failures, just habits. Checking out when things felt routine, rushing through what didn't feel urgent, treating time like it would always refill itself. I told myself this was normal, that everyone lived this way. And maybe they do. But normal doesn't mean harmless. By the time you notice what it costs, the bill is already due. The quiet truth is this: dramatic mistakes are rare, and they're easier to forgive. You can point to them, learn from them, make sense of them. But autopilot leaves no clear memory, no single lesson. It just leaves absence. When you reach the later years and look back, you don't see disasters. You see blank spaces, long stretches where nothing was wrong, but nothing was truly lived. And that realization settles in slowly like a weight you didn't feel while you were carrying it, only when you finally stop moving. I want to be honest with you now in the plainest way I know how. There is a moment coming in your life when all of this will become clear. You don't know when it will arrive, and you won't be able to schedule it. It might come with loss or illness or age or simply a quiet evening when the noise finally stops. When it does, you will see your life as it truly was, not as you explained it to yourself. That moment doesn't ask permission. It just shows you the truth. You still have a choice before that happens. That's the part people rarely understand. Presence isn't something you achieve once and keep forever. It's something you leave and return to, again and again. You will drift. You will forget. You will get pulled away by work, by worry, by small urgencies that feel important in the moment. That doesn't make you careless. It makes you human. The danger is not drifting. The danger is never noticing that you have. I didn't notice soon enough. I stayed distracted longer than I should have. I stayed busy when I should have stayed close. I told myself I would pay attention tomorrow. Tomorrow came and went more times than I can count. That's how life passes. Not in years, but in postponements. You don't feel it while it's happening. You feel it when it's done. So when I speak to you now, I'm not asking you to change your life. I'm asking you to notice it, to feel where you are, to look at the people in front of you without planning your next move, to listen without waiting to speak, to stay a few seconds longer than is comfortable. Those seconds are not small. They are the substance of life. You don't need to be present all the time. No one is. What matters is returning, catching yourself when you slip into autopilot and choosing, even briefly, to come back to this moment, to this person, to this breath. That choice doesn't announce itself. It waits quietly. It's available far more often than you think. I can't change what I missed. I can only tell you what it feels like to know you missed it. That feeling is patient. It waits. And one day, it sits down beside you and doesn't leave. If you're hearing me now, then you're earlier in the story than I was when I finally understood. That matters. Because noticing now, returning now, being present now, doesn't erase regret. It prevents it from becoming your companion. And that is a choice worth making while you still can.